I'd like to welcome you to this demonstration of our church's organ. It was built by the Holtkamp Organ Company in Cleveland, Ohio. It was dedicated in June of 1969. In the intervening years, we have had several additions to the organ. We've multiplexed the action of the organ, which means that we changed all the wiring from the console to the chest under the organ pipes. We've added some digital stops, and we've added 32-foot in the pedal, which is those notes that you only feel, you hardly even hear them, they're so low. Here's some information about modern pipe organs. They consist of many parts, including the pipes, of course, the wind chest that the pipes sit on, wind regulators, wind supply, a blower, miles of wiring, sophisticated circuitry, the casework, and the console, which controls it all. These parts are scattered around the meeting house. Some are visible up in the balcony. You see the pipes and the organ case and the organ console. But other parts are underneath the organ case, or behind the organ case, or under the choir loft, or inside the walls of the meeting house, and in the basement. I'll talk a little bit about the organ case. It was placed where it is so that the sound of the organ could move down the longest access of the building. That's good both for the bass response and it's good for the projection of the organ so that the organ can go into every corner of the meeting house. It also is built outside of the outside wall, meaning that there's space for the light to come in through the windows behind the case, and it also means that we can have the windows will look normal from the outside. The previous organ was in the back center balcony, and it totally closed off three of the windows in the balcony, which meant the room was much darker, and it meant from the outside you couldn't see the lights on when you were here at nighttime. So this was of all the designs we had for a new organ in the church, the design done by Holtkamp was the only one that really placed an instrument in the building in a really interesting way. Our video tour is going to show you parts of the organ that most people never get to see. I thank Kevin Holtz for his camera work and video editing. We're going to start in the basement with the blower. And the blower is located directly under the communion room. So let's see the video. And when we get down to the basement, when we finally open the door, you can see the blower. Look up on the top part of it because that's where there's a wind reservoir, which is going to fill up with air once the warden says it wants his head as it goes down there. That's the only way to the basement. Okay, so now we've gotten into the main door. The organ blower room is to the right. There it is. We don't get down here very often, so who knows what the conditions like. Could be cobwebs, spiders. Let's see what's in there today. Okay, so when we start the blower, we're going to look way up at the top. There's a wooden box with a little white strip on it. The white strip is some leather. And as soon as we turn on the organ, you're going to hear the sound, and you're going to see the wind reservoir expand as the air gets into the system. The wind reservoir is the first step in keeping a constant pressure of the wind going into the organ pipes. And then you see this wooden box that comes out from the reservoir and goes into a pipe overhead. This is the beginning of a long journey for the air. You notice that this is metal pipe right at the beginning, but then there's some fabric. The fabric is there to isolate the sound from the blower so it won't be carried by the metal pipe. We're now in the entranceway, and we're looking at the pipe going across the entranceway. This is where you have to watch your head when you're walking down there. Then now we're going into the main part of the basement. You're looking at the heating system for the building. And now we can start to see the pipe as it comes from the passageway. And it's going into the south corner, south wall of the basement. You see the basement is not a finished basement, it's only crawl space for a lot of it. And this organ pipe goes all the way across to the back corner, and then it comes up this passageway in the back southwest corner of the meeting house, and it gets up to the balcony. We're walking behind the organ case now, and as we will zoom in, and you'll be able to see like a plywood box here. That's piping pipe, which goes into the case under the organ, and here is finally we reach the first wind reservoir within the organ case itself. We'll pan up a little bit higher so you can actually see the wind reservoir. The springs help keep the pressure there, and there are also weights on top of the wind reservoir that also determine how much wind pressure is going to the pipes. There's a lot of space underneath the organ case. Now Kevin has crawled all the way to the front of the case. You see more wind lines. All the wooden boxes on the bottom, those are all wind lines going to different parts of the organ. Overhead are the wind chests. You can't see the actual action, but within the wind chests are little magnets that open up valves that let the air into each individual pipe up above. Now we're going to show you some of the pipes that you never get to see because they're the pipes that are in the corner of the organ behind shutters. Shutters being like Venetian blinds. So a whole division of the organ is basically kind of invisible behind the shutters. So now you're looking at some of those pipes. Looking at a mixture right in the front, crumhorn is the next stop, and you can see the shutters like the Venetian blinds that open and close kind of on the outsides of the box. And then Kevin is going to climb way up a ladder to get to the top, because that part of the organ is on 2 levels. So the top level has all smaller pipes. Some of the smallest pipes have maybe 1 or 1.5 inch long speaking length. Okay, that's our organ tour from the video point of view. We're now going to go upstairs and have a first look at the console and all the parts up there. Stay in this area, we'll sit in the views there. We don't want you over on that side. Okay. So, the program continues. We're on a tight schedule, so I'll try to move right ahead. So, here's the organ concept. When people talk about what's the organ, lots of people say they look right for the concept. For me, when I say, what is the organ? I look here. This is where all the sound comes from. This is kind of like a computer. This is like the internal, the CPU of your computer, and this is like the keyboard, which just tells everything in there what to do. So how many keyboards are on this organ? 3 is a good answer. Two is not. You can see 2, but there's a third keyboard that I play with my feet. And I have, how many equivalent fingers do I have in my feet? No. I have 4. I have 2 toes and I have 2 heels. Okay. So, for instance, I can play 4 notes with 2 toes, left toe, right toe, left heel, right heel. So I actually have 4 fingers I can use with my feet. Okay, now I'm going to use a piece by a French composer, Jean Langlais, written for pedal solo alone. And this is going to show how I use the 4 fingers in my feet. Okay, the organ has what we call divisions. The top keyboard, this has, there are many, the organ of the Bushnell I played yesterday has 4 keyboards, 4 mandolins. This one has only 2, but we have actually 5 divisions. So the pipes that are played from the top keyboard are what's behind the shutters. So I'll open and close the shutters so you can see what I'm talking about. So all those high pipes, it's the only division which is sort of expressive because we can open, it's like opening and closing a closet door. If you're behind the door and speaking, it'd be softer when the door's closed. So that's called the swell division because the volume can swell up and down. The bottom keyboard are all the pipes here on the left side. The pedal division are all the pipes on the right side. And we have 2 electronic divisions. And they're called floating divisions because they don't live on any keyboard. They don't default to a keyboard. But we have on the organ what we call couplers. So that, for instance, the pipes on the swell, I can play them down on the grate simply by putting on a coupler called swell to grate. So I can play those pipes here. I can play those pipes with my feet by putting swell to pedal. Same sound. The electronic divisions don't live anywhere, but again, I can couple them someplace. So like here are some reeds from the upper. So those are digital stops, they're not real pipes. And I can play them down here by putting solo to grate, or you play them in the pedals, whatever. And I have another division here we're calling a choir division that I can play wherever I want to. Okay, so those are the divisions and talks about couplers. We have on this organ 25 stops. Stops are these white tablets here on the console. Each one of these tablets corresponds to a row of pipes within the organ. So this stop is called a principal, the lowest note. If you're looking on the left side where the tallest pipe kind of in the middle of the pipes that reaches almost to the ceiling, that's this pipe. It's called an 8-foot principal, because the length of the pipe from the opening of the mouth to the top is about 8 feet tall. That produces the same pitch as a note on the piano would be. And as you change from one octave to the next, the length of the pipe goes in half. So octave higher would be 4 feet, octave higher would be 2 feet, octave higher would be 1 foot, octave higher would be a half a foot, and so on, maybe to a quarter of a foot. So these stops all have numbers on them. Principal 8, octave 4, 2 foot. That simply tells us what the longest pipe, how the length of it is. We have then a total of 1,731 pipes. We also have, as I said, 20 ranks of digital stops. So the stops are in families. The open cylindrical pipe, the ones I first played, the principal, is kind of the basic organ sound. And we have them at various pitches on each division. That's the 8-foot principal. Here's the 4-foot added to it. 2-foot added to it. And each of the divisions has some principal pipes. We also have flute pipes. At different pitches. Or even higher pitches. Or low pitches. The third thing we have is strings. This organ doesn't have too many string pipes. On the 12, there's a stop called a gamba. And we have also, electronically, we have a gemshorn that's kind of a string. So it's kind of halfway between the flute and the principal. Usually they're a little bit softer, and they often have a stop called a celeste with them. So I'm going to ask you to listen carefully to pitches. I'm going to play a note on the gamba, and then I'm going to play another note on the celeste. And can anybody here tell me what the difference is between those two sounds? There are several differences, but there's one, here's two. It's like an eye exam.
Overtones.
Overtones may be a little different. Anything else?
More muted.
The second one was more muted. Okay, the key thing is that it's a different pitch. It's actually higher pitched. And if you put them on together, they produce a beat because they're out of tune.
Oh,
That was a little bit higher, this a little bit lower. And together. So they think of them, they're called celeste because it's like a celestial sound. Yeah. I have two sets of celeste. So we don't use the celeste in combination with big sounds because we don't want the out-of-tuneness kind of ruin a nice pure chord. But for soft and romantic things, for communion music or whatever, I often will be using celeste. And the third kind of stops are the reed stops. They often have names that don't look like reed instruments, because we call them trumpets. But they actually have a little a piece of brass that vibrates, kind of like a clarinet reed. And there's a little wire that comes down, and you can lengthen or shorten the amount of the reed that will actually vibrate. So a typical reed stop would be like the trumpet on the grape. On the choir, we have a chrome horn. In the pedal, we have an oboe, a shawmot. And we have a fagot, the word for a bassoon. People think that's kind of a funny sound, but the bassoon players in the orchestra they often get some of those funny little phrases they have to play, kind of funky things. But you may wonder, what use is that? Well, if I'm playing on a big registration, say if I'm playing a hymn, there's a lot of sound on. That all sounds good, but the bass line doesn't have kind of the culminating, the final touch. If I put that fagot on, all of a sudden the bass line is just going to come alive. If I put another reed or two on, it'll be even more obvious. So those are some of the louder reeds. Digitally, we have some softer reeds. So I can do more romantic music. We have an oboe of the solo division. We have an English horn. We have another cornopian. And we have a big festival trumpet. This is loud. So those are some of the reed stops. The other thing we have, these pipes can be made of several different styles. Could be principals or flutes, but we have what's called mutations or mixtures. And those are pipes that do not play the unison or octave pitch. So in other words, if I am playing, pushing down a C, the Larigo is not giving me a C. How come? It's playing a G. And I have a cornet here. If I play that C, it plays I'm playing a C, but you're actually hearing an E and a G. So that's because of the musical overtone series. The overtone series, fundamental, could be there. The first overtone is an octave higher. The second overtone is a fifth above that. The next one is another octave, then a third, and a fifth, and sixth. And the higher up you get, the overtones get closer and closer. And so when you're registering an organ, if you just put on lots of 8-foot stops, if I have 3 8-foot stops on and I put a 4th one on, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference in the volume. But if I put an 8-foot and some 4-foot on, that'll make a big difference. So you need a 2-foot, even more. So the mixture is a combination of 4 ramps all playing at the same time. And they're playing unison notes and fifths. So if I'm playing a C, so that C and G is playing. And because they're very high pitches even to start, this is the lowest note on the keyboard. They have what's called breaks. And so if you were looking at the pipes, you would see the pipes start this high, and then they start getting taller again, then they start taller again, and they get taller. So it's kind of like a mouse running around in a circle, not getting anywhere. Or even more this one. You hear it keep coming back to lower notes. So that's so that on the bottom notes, you get lots of clarity, but if you kept on going up that high, you start getting above the level of what even you might be able to hear. So on the higher notes, it tends to reinforce the fundamental, and on the lower notes, it tends to give more brilliance to the bass notes. So that's how we use the mixtures. How am I doing for time? Time is almost to be over. How do we change dynamics? I already indicated that the swell box is one way to do it, but I have all these buttons. These are called combination pistons. Each one of those, I can preset sounds. I can do it. We have what's called a setter button. So I push the setter button in. I have the stops I want. I push the button, and that's gone into my memory. And I have a fancy slide-out drawer here. And I have 64 different combinations that each one of these pistons can be. So when I'm playing church service, my general 1 or my general 4 will be this sound. For choir anthems, let's see, try this. They all seem to be kind of the same, sorry. Anyway, they're all set differently. And so one way of changing volume or getting dynamics is simply by using different combinations that get louder and softer. So let's go from 1. Pushing buttons, we can change what the volume is. I also have what's called a crescendo pedal. Joan, if you can get down there. So this pedal on the left is what opens the shutters, but the pedal on the right adds stops. You can't see it normally, but it just goes from soft to almost full organ. Carefully. I have several settings of that. So I have another setting where it gets bigger. So for solo organs, I sometimes use a different setting for that combination than I do for church services. I also can change the key. If the hymn's too high and I need to go lower, also, maybe the last thing I'll talk about is some of the other fancy things we can do. I mentioned the fact that we have all the digital stops. They're all controlled by a unit which is behind these steps here. But we also have a MIDI. So we have MIDI on pedal. MIDI is just a musical instrument digital interface. And I have this little box right here is a MIDI module. And it has just hundreds of different sounds in it. So here's what I have on the MIDI on the grate right now. I think I used that last Easter for a brass ensemble. And on the top I have a French horn. This is for Candy. In the bass I have a tuba. So I could put all those on, and here's what a hymn sound might be like without them. Put all those on. So I can, there's a beautiful harp sound. One of the best sounds, like we're out of time, but one of my favorite sounds, if I can get to it, trombone, French horn. Let's try this. It's called the warm pad. Warm pad. I gotta find it. I'm almost there. Here it is. Put that on with a couple of organ pipes, you'd think you're at the Christian Science Church in Boston, where they have a zillion kind of sounds like that. Okay, so I think probably I've run over time.
You should dress up as one Easter is
That's right. Yeah, 1 year at Easter.
When you're at Easter, you hate eating grass.
They didn't know. They didn't know either.
It's on the internet.
Yeah. They know now. Okay, so I'll honor questions afterwards, but I thought I would maybe end, because you heard the toccata as opposed to it. Maybe you should hear the fugue that goes with the toccata. So your game said Candy would come on over and turn pages for me. for staying. Hope you learned something. This is one of this is one of the most valuable assets of the church property. This is, I'll tell you, it's a replacement of this would be well over $500,000. Okay? Yes?
I remember the day it was the first time you ever played it. I was sitting right there, and Jim Thompson, who had been our landlord when we were living in his garage apartment, was very instrumental in bringing our new organ, and the tears streamed down his face, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
The first sounds was so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite a journey getting to that point. So it was very emotional when it finally was here, we actually could hear it.
Yeah.
That's right. Other questions? Yeah.
I saw like metal things like near your foot pedals. What are those for?
Okay, those are more combination pistons. So with my hands, I can press the buttons to change stops, but I can also do it with my feet. Okay? So sometimes my hands are too busy, so then I can kick it with my foot. Other questions? Good questions.
So I have two questions. One, is there a delay between what you do with the keyboard and what comes out? I mean, when you're playing with an orchestra, do you have to take that into account?
It's always a question, yeah. There's not much of a delay. This is pretty prompt. I've played other instruments that have more of a delay. But yes, there are some places where I actually have to play just a fraction ahead. I have to push the key down a fraction ahead in order to have the sound come out with everybody else. So that is challenging sometimes.
My other question is, I mean, this is just a tremendous resource. I wondered if we are able to share it in some way with organ students so they can learn some of this. Teachers.
Well, I have had students in the past who have, had lessons here.
I see.
Yeah. And back in the 1970s and 80s, when I was teaching at the Hart School of Music, we would, on several occasions, we would have some of their students come out here and practice or do little concerts before they're getting ready to play. They were a senior recital or something, so they'd have more experience. But these days, there aren't that many people who are doing that with us. But we have had some American Guild of Organists programs here. One of them was a program that had some of our organ scholars, people who were getting scholarships to study organ. And so they have been here. I'd like to do more of that. But there aren't as many kids studying organ these days as there used to be. But on the other hand, those who are studying are better than ever.
Yeah.
More questions? I could go on for like 2 more hours. So yes. Okay, how does this compare with other organs that I play? Every organ is completely different from any other organ, even if it's the same building. Yesterday I was playing the Bushnell organ, which has 4,000 plus pipes. And it has 4 keyboards, and the music rack is way up here, so I'm trying to see with my glasses. It has all kinds of stop tablets all over the place to push down. But to play a piece like the Bach Prelude or Toccata that I just played here, I think sounds a whole lot better here than it would in the Bushnell. The Bushnell organ is an orchestral organ, and it's a much thicker sound, heavier sounds. It's not as bright, and so for music with the orchestra, it works really well. It has lots of really powerful reeds. It's probably much louder than this organ if I throw the whole thing on. But the different pieces of music sound better on different organs. There's no one organ that plays everything really well. The acoustics. For instance, the organ at Trinity College Chapel is a large instrument. It's a brighter instrument compared to the Bushnell. It's a bigger instrument than this, and it has a better acoustic sound. We don't have a lot of reverberation in this room. We have resonance. So it's all wood up here. There are no rugs on the upper level, and that maintains the sound quality pretty well, even when we have a lot of people downstairs. Because downstairs we have rugs and we have pew cushions. They absorb sound. They absorb high frequencies. Up here, there are a couple of pew cushions, but basically it's all hard reflective surfaces: ceiling, walls, floor, pews. So upstairs, the sound kind of can echo around up in here. So this is what gives the instrument resonance, is up here. And when you're in a room that is heavily carpeted, the sound of the organ is diminished, because organs really need to have resonance around them. They need to have reverberation for a lot of the music. A lot of the music of the traditional organ music from North Germany, France, was built for big stone buildings with lots of reverberation. You know, you lift your hands up off the end of the piece, and you can hear the sound going for 3 or 4 more seconds. Can't do that here. You can't really do that at the Bushnell either. It's fairly dry for the organ. But in St. Joseph's Cathedral, it has like 4 seconds of reverberation. And that's a 4-manual organ. I played that a number of times. I did a whole recital there for Hartman's. And the cathedral is one of the places where the time delay is an issue, because there are 3 parts to the organ in St. Joseph's Cathedral. There's the big organ in the back, but then there's an organ in the side chapel, which is way down, 100, 200 feet away or something. And then there's some pipes behind the altar, which are meant for giving pitches to the priest to sing or whatever. And if you choose to play something where you echo back and forth from the big organ to the organ down at the other end of the building, there's a huge time delay. It's very, very, very confusing to try to play something and get them all to play together. Yeah. So, and then I have my little 1-minute portable organ that I go around and do continual gigs, and that's just a whole other world too. That's very prompt response. This is pretty prompt here. Okay, that's a long answer to the question. Anything else? Good. I hope there's still some coffee over there. Coffee out. Thank you to Kevin and Joe. The one thing I didn't talk about is my shoes.
We noticed your shoes are different.
Yeah, organists never play with street shoes, at least they shouldn't. Because, first of all, you need to have them be narrow as possible so you don't hit 2 notes at once. And you need to have them very smooth. So rubber soles, sneakers do not work, because you need to be able to slide your foot over pedals. So this, if you, this one I can hold it better. So there's a very thin sole, and it's all leather, and a leather heel, and there's an arch, so that if I put my heel on the G and my toe on the B, and I don't hit the note in between. So you can't, with a flat shoe, you couldn't do that. So you need to have an arch, and this is light, so I can kind of dance. These are really dance shoes, so I can dance over the pedal. Okay, so some pipes are open at the top. Some pipes are stopped at the top, a cap. And if you put a cap on the end of a pipe, it actually makes it play an octave lower. So if a pipe has a stopper on the top of it, it actually plays the same pitch as an open pipe would be that was twice as long. So these mahogany pipes that you see here, you shouldn't do this, but I can do it. So if you look in here, see it's a plunger. And so to tune it, you raise and you lower. So this is a handle for the organ tuners, so that they can push the stopper down or pull it up to get the note in tune. By having just done that, my hot air has made the pipe warmer, so it's probably out of tune right now. temperature and tuning. These pipes have a little thing. This is an open pipe, but this little slider to tune it, they take a little thing and they knock this up and knock it down, change the length of the pipe. So these pipes, these are the reed pipes. Again, you shouldn't do this, but this is what I meant by the little brass tongue. And so it's like a clarinet reed. So inside this, the shell they call it, is hollow. And so the air is in the bottom of the pipe, and it sets this little brass tongue vibrating to get the pitch. And then this wire changes how long the vibrating part of the pipe is. This is a pedal pipe, and it's a high pitch. So pedals can sometimes play the melody. There we go.
Sometimes it kind of hurts.
Yes, yeah. So most of these pipes that are like this are called spotted metal, and it's an alloy of tin and lead. So it's basically like solder. It's a fairly soft metal, and if the pipe were to get too tall, it would eventually collapse of its own weight. It's just not strong enough. So when the pipes, if you look at this row of pipes, you see the pipe material changes about halfway down. So I think it changes in this case to a zinc, which is a stronger metal and can support a higher height. So all these little pipes are all spotted metal. The spotted metal pipes are very easy to voice too, because the little mouth of the pipe, they take a little thin knife and they kind of shave away until they get the sound just the way they want it. And if it's a little bit higher or a little bit lower, it can affect the speech and also the tone quality of the pipe. So every one of these pipes is handmade, which is one of the reasons why organs are so expensive. There's almost entirely manual labor making almost everything. Well, we had it touched up twice a year. It hasn't been tuned since last April. Only Kevin and I had to tune a few things this week. Kevin learned, he now knows how to be a holder of a pedal note while I tune it. Yes, yeah. Those pipes in the back corner there are wood. So, we have both metal and wood pipes. There's some copper pipes over here. That's the base of the trumpet. So I don't think the copper makes a huge difference. I think it's more the shape. But because you need to have, once it gets taller, you need different metals. So the organ builder thought the copper looked pretty. So, it's kind of a visual thing. But all the tall ones are always in. Those wooden ones, I'll play that bottom note. You see I have a sticky note there? And if I play the bottom note, I think you ought to see the wind coming out of the pipe. That's kind of fun. Let's see. Is that it? Or maybe if I play some high notes. I guess the bottom is the only one's working well. Okay. Yeah. So thanks to Joe and Kevin for helping to get the stream going. And we will, this has all been part of the worship service live stream. And once we get it into YouTube, we're going to take that and split it off into two separate recordings. So there'll be the service and be a separate recording for the organ demo. Okay? Yeah, they're still downstairs. I think.
They're all gone. I'm sure it's available.
No, maybe they're gone. I have more.
Okay. It's available.
Yeah, it's available. Oh, it's just show and tell. It doesn't have any bearing on what the sound is. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, it's obviously I'm enthusiastic about organs, and this organ, and this organ, it came in my fourth year. So, I was involved in the choosing of the builder, and went
He
through
was
the...
about 29 years old and he got a whole new organ.
Yeah. Okay.